Now, WhatsApp, Facebook and Instagram restored their services early this morning after being down for more than 6 hours. The platforms were hit by outages late yesterday, and millions of users across the world were unable to use the apps as well as the websites. We now analyze the impact of the blackout on users, and especially those who run their businesses online. Joining me now is my Broadband Editor, Mr. Vermuleun. Good to have you with us once again, Mr. Vermuleun. Perhaps let's start with exactly what happened, the technicalities around yesterday's global blackout.
Sure. So according to Facebook, the reason for the outage was that it had made a configuration change to core network infrastructure that handles communications between its data centers. To use the more technical terms, it looks like a thing called border gateway protocol was involved. And to just explain a little bit what that is, this is how networks advertise to one another where to find you on the internet. So basically, with Facebook's BGP routes down offline, there was no way for us to locate Facebook servers on the internet. So it's basically a way for network routers to advertise how users like us can actually reach the servers that house the content. And so the bottom line is that it looks like a Facebook technician or a team of technicians made a configuration mistake on Facebook's network routers, and those changes were pushed, and it caused a cascading failure throughout the Facebook network that locked out everybody, including Facebook themselves, for us 6 hours, for them however long it took them to get back into their systems and get everything back online for the rest of us. But the ultimate outcome of it all was a 6-hour outage for the users of Facebook systems.
Is this something standard for a company of this magnitude with the intricate expertise that they have in this industry?
It does unfortunately happen. The internet is a fickle beast, unfortunately, and major companies and technicians at major companies have made mistakes like these before that wipe the whole company off of the internet for hours. Whole ISPs here in South Africa have been wiped offline for similar mistakes. Facebook itself had a very similar issue in 2019. Now, obviously, they put a whole bunch of procedures in place to prevent this from happening, but unfortunately mistakes can creep in, and they do happen. And I can assure you that the technician who was responsible for this did not have a very good day yesterday, and is probably without a job today.
What then is the impact of this for the end user? I guess what I really want to know is, what do we do as end users to safeguard ourselves in the event of such blackouts actually happening? A lot of people use those mediums not only for their personal infrastructure and lives, but also to conduct their businesses.
Yes, as South Africans, we have a lot of freedom to choose there, so we don't have to use the Facebook ecosystem for everything if we don't want to. WhatsApp has many alternatives in the form of Telegram and Signal, just to name the two major ones. And then, if you're a business that is relying on your Facebook page for everything, then perhaps, hopefully, this is a wake-up call for folks to look at having their own web presence online and perhaps using other platforms. But my recommendation is always to folks to make sure that you've got a platform that you've got some control over. With Facebook, your fate is entirely in their hands. And, one understands why people are there. Everybody is there. They've got the biggest user base. And so it makes sense to have a presence on Facebook. But you really should have a way to reach your customers that is entirely under your own control, or at least mostly under your own control. That if something like this happens, or if Facebook decides to ban you, kick you off, or shut down, that you've got an alternative.
What does one do as far as backing up of information? If, for example, you wake up one day and you've been banned from the platform, a lot of people have personal information there that is of, if not economic value, sentimental value at least. How does one ensure that there isn't a loss of valuable data?
So all these platforms nowadays, Facebook, Google, Twitter, allow you to extract your data out of the platform in some way or another. So there'll be some guide online for you to follow to do that. And so that is something that's of concern to you. My recommendation is to keep regular backups, because if it's something like a ban that happens, then you might not be able to get back in to get at that data. And so you will have to fall back on whatever your most recent backup was. And, if it's photos and that sort of thing, my recommendation is to back it up. So either on, your own hard drives or a secondary cloud backup service, whether it's Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, something like that. So that, if don't put all your eggs in one basket is what it comes down to.
I think it certainly has been a wake-up call for so many around the globe. But what actually has been the financial implication of yesterday's global blackout?
So it's difficult to quantify. I'm hearing different measures coming out, people measuring, the kind of ad revenue that Facebook lost, which gives you a measure of what's happened. So yes, obviously Facebook would have lost all that ad revenue over that 6-hour stretch with no way of recovering it. Its share price reflected the lack of confidence that the market had, or the damage that the market thought would be done to the company, with Facebook's share price decreasing 5%. But it should be noted that that's not just based on the outage. There's a whole heap of stuff that's gone wrong at Facebook in the last couple of weeks. There's a whistleblower that's promising to blow the lid on all kinds of skeletons in Facebook closets that has also impacted the share price there. So it's a whole mess of things that's contributed to that. But one economic indicator is that because of the way the share price has collapsed, Mark Zuckerberg had $7 billion, around 105 billion rand of his own personal wealth wiped out, and he lost a spot on the billionaires. The Bloomberg Billionaires Index, going below Bill Gates for a while. So, that's at least one measure of the kind of economic impact this had. But there's businesses that rely on Facebook, whether it's, influencers on Instagram, or whether it's people who are reliant on the Facebook marketplace to sell their goods and services.
And I'm sure that Jan, was a huge knock. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it at there. But thank you so much for that insight and lessons to be learned really all round. That's Jan Vermuleun from My Broadband.